Hey guys, I'm Shayda, and in today's lettering tutorial, I'm showing you my best practices. So these are tips and tricks that you can use all the time or just sometimes to help you through a problematic word. They're going to make your lettering look much more polished, so let's get started. So the first best practice that I want to show you is called the height and the baseline. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw a line, and the baseline is the bottom line. So that's where my letters are going to start. And then I'm going to move my ruler up a little bit here, and I'm going to lay down a height line. And so that's where my letters are going to end. And then in between there somewhere, I'm going to add what's called a waistline. And you can place this anywhere you like, and actually where you choose to place it will really affect the look of the letters, so you might want to play around with that a little bit. So your height line is on the top, your waistline is in the middle, and your baseline is the bottom. Now you can see if I do a letter like L, I'm really just using the height and the baseline. So that's where my letter starts and where it stops. But then if I go to do a smaller letter like E here, you can see that I'm using the waistline. So any small letters, that's where they're going to stop. And then something like a T that has a cross, that's where you're going to place the cross on the waistline. So having those three lines will really give your word a look of uniformity, and it'll give it a nice polish because everything's going to be in the right spot. So let's move on to the next point. And the next thing you want to talk about is equal spacing between each letter. That's so important. The negative space between the letters is almost as important as the letters themselves. And there's a few reasons for this. I often scrunch my words in at the end for some reason. So thinking about equal spacing can really help you break some of your bad habits that you might not even know you're making or that you're doing. So here we're going to equally space all of our letters. So not only does it look nice and polished and uniform, but then when we do our faux calligraphy, it becomes really important. So as you know, when we're doing fake calligraphy, we always thicken on the downstroke, and it's important to thicken the downstroke on the same side every time so that the word doesn't start to look a little lopsided and wonky. So you can see there, I don't want to thicken the E on the left, I want to thicken it on the right because that's what I did with the L. And the same goes forward with each of these letters. I'm going to thicken each downstroke on the right-hand side, and I'm going to get a word that looks nice and polished and uniform. And it looks really professional, I think. So this can help to take you from a little bit amateur to a little more professional if that's where you want to go with your lettering. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to think about are our connectors. And connectors are those bits between each letter. And they can make the difference between the word letter looking like this, just kind of like your regular handwriting, and a little more jaunty, shall we say, like this. So here I'm sort of playing around with those connectors, and I'm adding some movement to the word. I sort of did a weird cross of the T there, but I think you guys get the point. So let's do it a little larger here. So I've got my height line, my baseline, and my waistline. And while I won't be using them quite in the same way because I'm moving the letters, I'm adding movement, I still like to have them there to help guide me. So here I'm moving the E up above my baseline a little, and then I'm going to drop the T down below the baseline. And I'm thinking about those connectors, and I'm thinking about how they can add a little something extra to the word. And you might not do this on every word. This is just the sort of the right thing for certain projects, I think. Okay, so let's flip the page and sort of do a little recap about our best practices. So number one is the height line, the baseline, and the waistline. And these are important because A, you're just deciding how big you want the word to be. And then, like I said, where you put that waistline will really determine what the letters look like. Number two is your equal spacing. So remember, that negative space is so important. Having equal spacing is really the difference between amateur and professional, and that's something I still struggle with. Thicken the downstroke on the same side every time. This is going to make your words look so much more polished. And then number four is work those connectors. So when it's the right project, you're going to play around with the connecting bits between the letters. Now here I'm going to lay down my lines, my guidelines, and I'm going to write the word Monday. And I'm just trying to think about all 4 of my best practices as I go through the word. So I'm thinking here about the shape of each letter, thinking about equal spacing. I'm using my guidelines as just that, as a guide. Okay, here, see, I've sort of gummed this up at the end, as I always do. My letters are too close together, but I can easily erase that and just add a more equal spacing. And I'm using the connectors to add some real movement and fun to that word. And now you can see when I go over it in pen and when I start to add the thickness on the downstrokes, using those best practices helps me to make a nice hand-lettered word that I'm really proud of and really happy with. I hope you'll give these best practices a try if you are trying to take your hand lettering from amateur to professional, or you just have some problematic words you've been struggling with. These are my go-to tips and tricks. So thanks so much for watching today, guys, and I will see you next week with a new tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe.